Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today for the second session of Evaluation's summer series of webinars. My name is Chris Mounce. I'm Product Enablement and Training Specialist here in Evaluation. And you'll notice that I'm not on my own. I'm joined by Pete Dunn. Now, Pete is the Transformation Manager in the team, brings years of knowledge and experience, all things QA. So, Pete, over to you. Tell us more about your role and what you do.
Absolutely, yeah. Cheers, Chris. For Evaluation, essentially, I'm part of the customer success team, and I exist to help our customers to get more out of the platform, to maximise the investment, the value out the back of it. But really, linking into what we're talking about today, it's that transformation from the old school manual QA team through to what does an AI enhanced QA team look like? And that's what I'm doing with a lot of our customers at the minute.
It's really exciting. I mean, we're right in this sort of kind of the middle of this evolution of the role, and we speak about this quite a lot, don't we, Pete? And it's we usually end up talking for a long time about it, but we've only got half an hour today. So let's keep things moving right along. The last session was about the mistakes that derail AutoQA. Today's kind of the flip side, I think. It's the optimistic one. And it's probably the question that I think most people are asking. If the machine is doing all of the scoring, what's left for my QA team? So that's the question we're going to answer head on today, Pete. But let's just sort of kind of start it off. The long and the short of it, QA teams, they are not going anywhere. But it does come with a caveat. The remit is definitely expanding. So, Pete, let's get into this. The first thing that we'll look at is where QA has been. Now, the thing is, when we say where QA's been, for a lot of contact centres, this is probably the current reality, isn't it? I mean, manual scoring, focusing on the coaching, evaluating single interactions, and that emphasis on compliance. What's your take on it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Chris. If we think to, over half of UKI, companies are still living in spreadsheets, whether it's Excel, Looker, whatever it might be. Realistically, it's very manual, right? It's very head down. And I think, to almost paint that picture, right, in many instances, it is very similar to when I started, in the QA space 20-ish years ago. Chasing volume, chasing sample, always trying to get enough done that you can start to prove something, or you can say we've done 3 per agent per month, and it's always been about that. There's never enough time to be able to really prove something. There's never enough opportunity to deep dive into whether it is compliance and are we being compliant, and is the risk really well managed, or is it that agent development and coaching opportunity where we're giving enough insight and coaching ready feedback to be able to really help move the needle on how do we develop and train our frontline operations. And it's always been that case for such a long time that everything there's not quite enough time, or it's just out of reach, and QA then was seen as a cost, right? And it was something for a contact center to bear. Yeah.
Well, I was the same as you. I mean, it wasn't quite 20 years ago, but it was spreadsheets and all it was scoring interactions, and the amount of time that took. It was at the start of the week it was fine, but see, the longer you done it, it was soul destroying. And the thing is, and I don't think you realise this at the time, it's having an impact on how you're scoring when you get to the end of the week. So the quality of those scores reduced, the quality of the feedback probably reduced as well. And then the coaching element, that was just if you've got time, let's just tick that box and get that over and done with. And ultimately, it's the agent that suffers. And if the agent's suffering, then you're just measuring the same level of performance because nothing's going to improve.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It was. I mean, if I think back to when I before I even moved into QA, working in the operational side of things, the feedback, if I saw feedback, it was very much you did this, don't do it again. It wasn't anything that you could really hang your hat on and say, well, that helps me to develop. It's very much by exception and focused on what had gone wrong. And if that even made its way through to me as an advisor or even as a team leader, I'd also struggle to have time to be able to do anything with it, right? And that was the pain there, in that if the feedback wasn't very good from the team, flipping to a QA perspective, it always became the QA felt like business police, or the team that just exists to find those things wrong on my 1, 2, 3 calls every month. That really didn't represent me as an agent on the hundreds of calls I probably have taken in the space of the last week or so. And then even trying to understand, when did I have that call? And they're saying I did something wrong, but I can't even remember it because it was a week or so ago. All of these things led to your point, like just poor, almost pointless, useless feedback that you really couldn't do anything with, except feel that, a bit aggrieved, really, right? That you just hadn't been told anything that you could do anything with.
Well, see, when you're in that situation, even before you go into that coaching conversation, there's a barrier right away. I mean, you're getting into that. The agent is, that mindset where I'm just going to get told off for things that I've done wrong. It's the QA police, arms folded, closed off, sort of kind of body language. That's a difficult conversation. And the thing is, I don't know about you, Pete, but I would know agents that were probably going to go down that road when I was having that conversation with them. I would dread it. So that was a barrier in my mind. The agent had that barrier as well. So again, it comes back to that tick box exercise that was causing grief. There's a lot of psychology in QA, which I think is super important. Talking about how you score things, how you deliver feedback, all of that good stuff. And when we're focused on the old way, if you like, just never enough time to really put the time and effort into understanding that psychology to get the best out of those conversations and those exercises.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely. And in many instances, I think it was, on that bottom point, the compliance side of things, it was always that chase again of trying to get to, can we confidently, whether it's, a confidence level, or if it's, have we done enough to sample it? It was always that, when we're auditing, it feels like it's painful for the operation, and it feels like it's painful for the QA. No one benefited from that. And when you roll that up to that strategic level, it was always the messaging and conversation was around justification. There was a lack of trust. So the team existed because it had to exist, almost, because maybe, an auditor said so, or a risk and control program said so. But in terms of the value that it delivered to the operation, it started and stopped with, you didn't even get time at the C-suite table, because you could never have enough data and enough rationale to be able to say, this is what's happening, this is why it's happening, and we've done that with enough sample to have a really high confidence in telling you that. It was always, we'll have to caveat it with, this is based on month-old data, and it's 100 evaluations, and there's probably something going on, but we're not sure.
Well, that's that like 99% of the conversations that you don't see what's happening in there. And I guess, Pete, this is a good segue into the kind of future state where QA is going, which for me this is really exciting, and it's marking an evolution of the QA role, because where AutoQA is essentially filling that gap and scoring 100% of conversations, that opens up an awful lot of opportunities for the QA team. What's your take on it?
Yeah, if I think back to then, if someone had said to me, look, there's technology now that it's not a beige box, it's not text analytics, and you're not going to put a huge amount of upkeep into even, again, trying to justify how this thing works as part of the approach that you take, because let's be honest, that was what a more mature team back then had access to, was text analytics at best. And if someone had said to me, actually, there's something that can sit and do that kind of repetitive, head down, churn type activity that you spend all your time doing, and that you can work with it to get it to a place where you trust it, because that's a critical part, right? Is you have to trust the outcome as a QA team to carry that out into your operational teams and upwards to the C-suite. If someone had said, it'll do all that bit, you get to then spend your time working on what actually matters, then I would have bitten their hand off for the opportunity to to have a go with that technology. And
Oh, absolutely.
I think as we see now, AI's everywhere, right? And it's talked about constantly. In terms of where QA is going, I think it is that opportunity then to kind of start really doing things that matter. Start being that key point that supports an operational team and actually other support functions like marketing, planning. So there's so many different applications that can start in, are we doing the right things, saying the right things, do our processes work? But when the AI does that heavy lifting and actually you focus that QA skill set instead on, all right, so what's actually happening and what are we doing about it? Then you made a huge step change in the value of a QA team. Like they're no longer a cost; they're becoming a value add function.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, one of the kind of biggest things for me is the top point there, those deep dive evaluations that then can be carried out by the evaluators that have been selected by the AI. Here's an evaluation, here's a conversation where there's high risk, there's a lot of insight. Here's something that can really move the needle in performance, and just that slight change where you're not just evaluating running the mill conversations, you're getting the real stuff, the high risk stuff. All of the other stuff is being scored and that's been measured and that's great. But in terms of getting those high risk conversations, that's for me that's a massive plus.
Absolutely, yeah. It was always a trade off when it was manual, right? That you had to try and deliver that kind of monthly sample, random sampling, pick 3 random sales calls, retention calls, whatever it might be. But if you didn't do that, to be able to do those deep dive, high risk, high value interactions, then you had to stop doing the other stuff. There wasn't the opportunity where it was do both and do it well. It was, we're turning all of this off to try and go and do that. And then I always carried that risk with it as well, right? Is that all the things that we knew weren't good enough, but still had to happen, they still had to happen. And we knew they weren't good enough, but we then couldn't turn it off to start the value activity. As you say, diving into what's high risk. So, what's the kind of insight you can pull from your escalated complaints? What's the kind of insight you can pull from repeat customers who are calling back again and again and again? And the feedback that you can present from that kind of activity. You knew it was there. It was just that you couldn't go and get it because you had to do the kind of BAU sampling. And being able now to get into that is a huge opportunity.
I think one thing that I'll mention just to the audience out there, I meant to say this at the start, Pete, and I just get into it right away. Guys, if there are any questions on anything we're talking about, the Q&A function is available just at the bottom of the screen. Just click on that and or use the chat function as well. We're keeping an eye on that, and Vicky, our producer in the background, will make sure that we don't miss anything. So if there are any questions on anything that we're talking about or any burning questions that you have, please feel free to drop them in and we'll get to those. But Pete, just bringing it back into the room, one of the things that is, I think, pretty pertinent now is the focus on bots and AI agents and virtual assistants, because back in the day with manual QA, there was no chance that you would be able to have the time and capacity to QA bots. But really, there is a real risk on not QAing bots, and it's something that is enabled through AutoQA and AI augmenting those workflows. I'm curious to your take on that.
Yeah, if I think back to when web chat started to become a channel, definitely show my age there.
That's an old term. I've not heard that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Web chat is how do we? So remember the pain that it caused planners. How do you plan headcount across multiple interactions? How do you QA when a human's having multiple interactions? So we started to see that interaction almost density increase way back then. Applying that, as you say, to those AI agents and understanding actually they can easily have thousands of conversations simultaneously with your customer base, right? And that you need them to say the right thing, you need them to do the right thing,
Yeah,
or you absolutely know that at a pace that you can't keep up with, they are there. Well, how many horror stories have we seen, right, where customers have easily been able to get AI to sell them a truck for $1 or sell them tickets on
yeah,
a flight that doesn't exist. Right? So QAing that is it's not just necessary, but if we talk about risk and the opportunity to not only contain risk but turn that into, here's how we make the company better. AI agents are absolutely at that point now where the capacity for them to do great things, or to absolutely put your brand in the bin into an almost unrecoverable state
yeah,
is,
yeah.
is hugely important for us to keep our eyes on.
Well, this is the thing. When it comes to the bots, the way that I've been thinking about it is like an agent can make one mistake on a call, move on to the next one, and that mistake's never repeated. Because your bots are getting the one instruction, the one set of workflows, etc., that single mistake is scaled up to all of those conversations. And you're absolutely right. You don't need to go far to find all the horror stories. And they're funny, but in a serious sense, there's real risk attached, and that reputational damage. It's hard to come back from that. And the cool thing is AutoQA has the capability to be able to keep an eye on those bots. So when something does happen, you find out almost immediately, rather than finding out about it in the news or when you're tagged in something in LinkedIn, your
Yeah,
bots went rogue. But I'm mindful of time, Pete. The one thing I wanted to kind of talk about with you is the customer journey analysis. I know you're a big fan of customer journey analysis, and it is vitally important because there is that focus on the wider conversation now. It's not just the singular, it's what's happened across all of that journey, particularly with things like consumer duty coming into play as well. What do you make of it?
yeah, you're absolutely right. Consumer duty, especially, but so historically, gone back to the being for a second, it was always that. Well, we'll QA it in the way that the call happens, right? We'll go through the flow, the opening, the question, the listening, expectation setting, closing, and then all the other bits and pieces, like the regulatory stuff. Now, when you apply that to not just human interactions, which are ever more complex, right? We've used machine learning and such to take out the simple bits already. So we're asking our agents to represent us in really complex conversations. We're asking our AI agents to scale at a pace we've never seen before. Being able to actually understand what, actual genuine quality assurance, not just a control mechanism, what's actually happening in those journeys, and where are we causing pain for our customers across different interactions, across different channels. Going back to the FCA last year, they put out a report that said, I think 49% of our customers are vulnerable. So
Yeah,
using journey analysis, especially automated journey analysis, to be able to say, here's how we're treating our vulnerable customers, and here's what we can do about that to improve it, that then cascades out to all of your customers. So not just from a risk perspective, yes, we can tell the FCA this is what we do, because we know we're going to get things wrong. But the important point is that we can show where we are and what we do about it. Customer journey analysis is, to me, an absolutely key part of that. And undoubtedly we'll see the other regulators as they tend to continue to move in line with what the FCA recommend. So eventually, at some point, if you've got any regulated business, you're going to need to really have strong journey analysis in place.
yeah, and I think considering that this type of technology is available to measure it and report on it, there's going to be that expectation that you need to have that technology in your contact center to be able to meet those requirements because it's possible. So you should have it. That's the way I kind of see it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. If you're investing as a business in AI agents or AI coaching and knowledge-based support for your humans, then you absolutely have to have the technology that scales with it, that gives you that overlay to say, all of this is scaling rapidly, but we've put controls in place. Because if you don't,
Yeah.
then that risk is widening exponentially. You
Well,
know,
this is, I mean, see, with all of the activity that's now taking place, coming back to or going to the last point in the slide, this is all freeing up evaluator time and QA time to focus on coaching and improvement, which is ultimately going to move that needle in performance and bring everything up by the wayside. And I think that's one of the key things. It's not taking anything away from the role. It's freeing up that time to be able to focus on the developmental element, the human element.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we talk about human in the loop, don't we, with AI, and I think a QA team is really good. We know it's almost that nexus of they see and hear so much. They're subject matter experts, but that historically meant it was a bit of a catch-all team. You had to audit things, you had to be part of a compliance function, never quite doing enough to land any of it. Whereas now it's that opportunity to really make that conscious decision that, well, we can really enhance what the QA can do, and we can pick where we put that focus, knowing that the tech's doing all the other bits in the background. So going back to that top point, specific and high risk and high value, coaching on that is absolutely something that QA and coaches can really enhance and, as you say, move the needle.
Absolutely. And I guess that's a good way to then move on to the next element, which is what skills are actually going to matter in this brave new world. Because I think for me, the amount of data that's being generated in the AI activity that's happening, for me, I think one of the key focuses is going to be managing the AI. You mentioned trust earlier. That is super important, and I think that's where I'll see the QA team playing a part in making sure that trust is high.
Yeah, it has to be, right. It's a very human thing, but it's baked into the word, the words QA. Right? There's assurance, is reporting back to your business, your stakeholders, whoever, that things are happening as they should, and if they're not, that something's in plan to provide a treatment and an improvement for that. And so that opportunity, as you say, is really leaning on QA teams to almost be the hero of finding and understanding and presenting back to the business, this is what's happening, and we know that the value of that is massive. If you can get your NPS going in the right way, if you can get your customer effort going in the right way, then the dividends on that, employee satisfaction as well, right? An engaged employee is an effective employee. Effective employees give additional effort in every single interaction they do. So they show up and they actually show your brand in the best possible light. And to me, that all stems from, you have to give, the data, the treatment it needs to turn it into the insights, to turn it into the knowledge and the actions. And to me, that stems right back to that. To me, I've always seen QA teams as endlessly curious and wanting to make things better. So we're not asking for a new skill set there, and they are coachable parts of QA teams. And we're really looking to build out on that to say, we're going to harness the technology to do what you always do. We're supercharging it.
Yeah, I think we generative AI in particular, it introduced a new element that a lot of us had to learn and get to grips with, and that was prompt writing. Prompt writing was a whole new world, I think, for all of us, because when I'm talking about prompts, I'm meaning the instructions for line items and the guidelines that help. Traditionally, what was the evaluators? They would help them code it in the right way. And certainly, what I've seen, I don't know about you, P, but I've seen there's been a journey in getting to the point where we're not writing these instructions for humans. We're writing them for large language models, and we can always assume that there's a certain amount of understanding from from a human perspective. We tell a human to look for empathy. They know, especially if they're a QA, that's their job. But if we tell a large language model that, it's slightly different, because they're incredibly intelligent, but at the same point, really, really stupid, because they will follow those instructions literally. So I think that's where I see a skill developing there, is that prompt writing and AI literacy.
Absolutely, yeah. Applying, we know that so often QAs are really a subject matter expert team. They look at so many different lenses of our contact centres, all the way through from that first line service, the escalated complaints, retentions, all sales. They represent almost that microcosm of, your entire contact operation. And so being able to leverage that, that prompt engineering skill set in that kind of team, absolutely, yeah, it's a huge opportunity then to reskill your QA to let's get them from that head down old school. They're doing all of the churn, and it's very much it is audit, it is evaluate, it's monitor, it's quite passive and it's low value. It's providing that genuine analysis and turning that into the prompts that then we can trust, right? Back to trust. It's key that we can trust those prompts that LLMs are non-deterministic, but they can absolutely push out the answers that we can trust, that are faithful to what we need it to be. And again, leveraging that with the QA teams is a key part of, this really matters, because building that trust starts right at those principles of, do the prompts ask the right questions in the right way to give us the right answers?
Yeah, yeah. You make an excellent point. I mean, I think the when we're using AI as part of QA, that's essentially an AI evaluator. So one of the kind of key skills I think that will be evolving is managing that AI evaluator. And calibration, I think, will play a massive part. Traditionally, QAs, we know that was getting the team together and scoring everything at the same time, and then having sometimes heated discussion on what should be the correct one. I see that coming into that as an integral workflow where everyone in the QA team will be calibrating on those AI results, because then it'll build that trust as well. That'll be a team effort, I think, to making sure that trust piece is built.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And as you mentioned, there, calibration. As we've got more complex and into the more subjective over the last kind of 5 or 10 years, we know that calibration has been a constant challenge. Again, the QA picks up in so many operations. How the team leaders score and what do they think good looks like versus your operational leadership. And kind of going down through those layers, what does good look like becomes more complex. And trying to calibrate that so you have that trust that everyone's working to the same principles. That is absolutely a very transferable skill to the AI side of things. So calibrating the AI, and as you say, kind of being that prompt engineer and manager and looking after that so you can approach that, effectively.
It's very exciting. I mean, this is an exciting time, I think, for QA teams. Massive changes, with the advent of AI, etc. But this is a very exciting time. Pete, we're nearly at time, believe it or not. We've got a couple of questions that's came through, so we can pick those up just now. So, Pete, I'm going to look at you first to give your first take on it as I read it out to you. So the first question is, how do you balance auto QA, i.e., 100% checking with identifying more harms that you would want to and having to redress so much more than you currently do?
I think that's an interesting way of framing it. Yeah, you will absolutely surface more potential harm and more redress, but the cost of not doing anything about it is significantly higher. So at the very least, when it comes to going back to the FCA and saying, yeah, we recognise we've not done things right here, here's our treatment plan, having worked with them directly in the past, I know that approach, 9 times out of 10, is the best approach. Closing the door and pretending it never happened, it will come out, right? We know that. And the fine will be up to 10% of your operating cost. So being open, being honest, and particularly, yeah, you will surface more, but it also has more time to the skill set for your QA to actually analyze what's going on, why, and the treatment plan. So you can pass that out to your kind of operational change and improvement teams. So the challenge and the response goes hand in hand, I think.
Excellent. Thanks, Pete. So we're nearly at time, so I'm just going to rattle through these questions. Next question is, we are trying to define the future operating model for our QA function. Beyond deep dives into higher risk contacts, what are some of the specific responsibilities that successful QA teams have taken on once AutoQA is monitoring every interaction? So I guess that's kind of what we spoke about: calibration, prompt engineering, making sure that they are refining any changes or any discrepancies that have came out of AI results. That'd be fair to say, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a core part of it. The time that it frees up, I think, is very much around the value add. You know, what's our voice of the process saying in terms of where are things getting in the way of a good conversation? Are our QA processes aligned? You can take that step back instead of being head down and churning. Are what we
Yeah,
look at aligned to what the operation needs and our customers need? Um, I think it's very much understanding what are the areas that we've always wanted to do more of, and now we've got more time to do it. So let's explore what that looks like.
yeah, totally. So let's another question. So this is an interesting one. Have you seen organizations reduce the size of QA teams or expand, or do they typically just redeploy them into different work? And this is kind of the whole crux of what we're talking about, is that evolution of the role.
Absolutely, yeah. We've seen all of the above, right? And I think very publicly we've seen that going too early and too big on reducing headcount has a huge negative impact. Right? I'll stick my flag in the sand on that one. Don't do that. This isn't about releasing headcount and removing operating costs that way. Absolutely not. Your QA team is there to redeploy, redevelop, and enhance everything that they can currently do as you move your agents through professionalization and team leads through professionalization. The QA teams go with it, and that enhances everything that comes out of that team as a result. I've seen some companies increase headcount, because they found so much value from their QA and analytics setup that it makes natural sense to bring in more business analysis capability and even data science and data journalism suddenly becomes a QA team, and the difference is it drives massive value as a result.
Brilliant. Thank you, Pete. So we're over time. Any questions, guys, that we haven't got to, we will get them out to you in an email. But just to kind of wind up, we've got two more sessions to come in this summer series. Next one is the 12th of August at 2 p.m. So look out for the registration links there. And one last thing that I'll say before we wind up, you will receive a survey just after the webinar. So please just give your honest feedback on how you felt it went, anything that we can do differently. These webinars ultimately are for you guys to make sure that you're getting value both from evaluation and your QA processes. But all that being said, Pete, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been excellent. I know we can talk about this for ages. I've really enjoyed this, so thank you, Pete. And I hope all you guys have as well. Well, that said, we'll leave it at that. Have a good day, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, Chris.